Poor decision making, conflicting priorities, reduced productivity, low morale. Listen, I'm sure you're dealing with at least one of these challenges right now. If not now, soon, right? Something wicked this way comes, if only on a small scale. These are pretty common issues that most businesses face. And if you're a leader or a senior manager, you're not alone. All of these problems and more stem from a lack of alignment in the business. Once we improve that alignment, get more people pointing in the right direction. Once we improve that lack of alignment, those 4 issues and lots others will start to resolve themselves. You'll see. I'll give you 5 minutes and I'll show you all about it. I'm Antonio, and today I'm going to be your leadership coach. Over the next 30 to 40 minutes, we're going to sit down together to address the lack of alignment in your business and how to create a unified, motivated team that's working towards shared goals together as a team. And this way, you can finally begin to stop managing and start leading. In previous episodes, we've talked about something called the leadership honeycomb. It looks a little bit like this, but you can download the official image from our website. More of that later. But we said that if leadership is struggling, if an organization or a business is struggling, if they're not quite where they need to be, then there are some lacks. Right, quote unquote lacks, L-A-C-K-S. There are certain things that are probably lacking or in short supply. We've talked about a lack of clarity and vision. One of our videos talks about that. Go find it if that's an issue for you. Lack of resources, perhaps time, effort, energy, people, not just money. So if that's an issue for you, go find that one. Lack of commitment, perhaps, or a lack of time, or a lack of trust and truth. But today I want to talk about the bottom right-hand corner of our leadership honeycomb model. I want to talk about the lack of alignment. Think also with the word linkage. Every time I talk about lack of alignment, think about linkage, because linkages what align people together, link people together, and linkage is really, really important for an organization. So if there is lack of alignment, that kind of reveals itself in some fairly dreadful ways. And today I want to have a look into that. What does a lack of alignment give us or deliver to us? And as a consequence of a lack of alignment, how does that reveal itself? Where will we see that? Where will it hurt us? And then, of course, just as importantly, perhaps even more so, talk about what we can do to fix those things. So that's today's topic. If that sounds like something you'd be interested in, let's dive in. So to save a little bit of time, what I've done is I've drawn just a 4-box model, so a standard 4-box model, and I've put a diagonal kind of bottom left to top right in each of the 4 squares, as you see here. And no doubt when you do the download, it's going to look much better than this, and I'll tell you more about that a little bit later on. So draw yourself. It's so much better that whilst ever we're drawing our models, whilst ever we're going through every episode, we have at least 1 or 2 models. It's really important, and rather than just sitting there passively watching us draw them and kind of enjoying the reveal of them, none of them are that complex and complicated, I don't think, that you can't draw them to yourself. When you draw them yourself, as we're explaining them and you can see them on the screen, it actually helps you understand them so much better. You remember them, and the beauty of models, and the reason that we do this probably more than anything else, is not only so that you can understand it, it's so that you can describe it to others. When you can start using models to explain where you are to people, explain what the plan is, understand things, really helps you be able to communicate, and more than that, inspire people to, well, whatever it is that you're trying to achieve. But okay, so I'm hoping that whilst I've been rambling, you've drawn this or some semblance of it. Let's dive in. When we introduced this model, I don't know, maybe 20 videos ago, we said that, look, a lack of alignment, a lack of linkage in the organization reveals itself in 4 major ways. Lack of alignment means that we have conflicting priorities. So we'll talk about that in a second. Reduced productivity, we'll talk about that. Low morale and poor decision making. So lacking of alignment, or lack of alignment, means that we have conflicting priorities, reduced productivity, low morale, and poor decision making. And none of those things are good. All of those things serve to slow us down, frustrate us, increase cost, and bad things, reduce our resources, time, money, effort, energy, people, and all of that good stuff. So we're going to start by looking at those 4 things. So let's stick one of each of those 4 things into this 4-box model, and then see how do we fix those things. So in no particular order, let's go first to conflicting priorities. Well, so what happens if we have conflicting priorities? Well, certainly, but not necessarily in this order, this is how silos first start being built up. When people have conflicting priorities and everybody isn't working towards the same common goal, silos get created. When silos get created, what do you think that might do to collaboration? It breaks those things down. What do you think it does to goal achievement? It slows those things down. So we'll talk about that in a second. So number 1, perhaps conflicting priorities mean that we are building and certainly not tearing down silos. Why? Because we have competing goals. And competing goals, that just creates friction. And friction creates heat, and heat slows everybody down, and all of that kind of stuff. So whenever you think competing goals, think friction, right? So that means that people, not everybody, but there are more people than we would need them to be, are at cross purposes. So what do we end up doing? We end up wasting resources, that's time, effort, energy, right? Time, effort, energy, people, okay? So conflicting priorities sets up all of that kind of nonsense. That's because there's a lack of alignment. What does that mean? It means that all of the leaders, all of the managers, they're not all pointing in the same direction. And we need to make sure that they are pointing in the same direction so that we don't have conflicting priorities, so that we don't have silos and competing goals. So the way that we deal with conflicting priorities, right, is we've got to set super clear goals. So the way that we deal with that is by set clear goals. When we can start to share goals, right, interdepartmentally, when we can start to collaborate on goal achievement, then conflicting priorities reduce. So we have to set clear goals and make sure that we communicate really clear goals, and these goals must be congruent. So there must be set, clear, and congruent goals. You start by setting smarter goals. Notice I didn't say smart goals, I said smarter goals. Smarter goals. We at My Daily Leadership, everybody loves smart goals. Nobody understands smart goals, right? Specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timed. Okay, great. Everybody knows I was time bound. We only think about, at My Daily Leadership clients, we train smarter goals, which means that the ER stands for evaluated. So we're constantly sense checking, constantly evaluating, and then reviewing and course correcting, right? So we set smarter goals. In terms of those smarter goals, think about the few most important. It's amazing how when we're talking to some of our leaders and we ask to have a look at the KPIs that they're tracking for themselves and their other people, and they have so many KPIs and they have so many goals and they have so many priorities. And I don't know who it was that first said it, but we think about it a lot and we talk about it a lot. If you have more than, say, 4 or 5 priorities, you have none, right? So it's the few most important KPIs. And the other thing I want everybody to start to do as a matter of course is manage by exception. So obviously smarter goals, we could do a whole episode on smarter goals. We could do a whole episode on KPIs. I think we touched on that in an earlier episode when we talked about Yosemite Falls and waterfall models. Managing by exception is a really critical senior leadership, senior management skill. Manage by exception is, look, nobody wants to feel micromanaged. Nobody wants to be micromanaged. People want to feel a sense of autonomy. We need to give people that. Why? Because we want them to be motivated. We're going to talk about motivation a little bit later on. But how do we make sure that we have a tight enough hold and loose enough hold? So tight enough so that people are being held accountable, and loose enough so they're not feeling that they're being micromanaged. It's a real skill. And the way that we do that, the way that we train that, the way that we affect that, execute that is management by exception. So we agree with somebody some goals, let's say. So we're talking about clear goal setting here. So you talk, senior team or senior manager, somebody that reports to you perhaps, and you talk about what the goals might be, and you agree those goals, and you agree the reasons, and you agree the objectives, and all of that good stuff. And then you agree, okay, here are top 3 goals. We also agree, how will we know that we're right? Okay, so let's agree what the early milestones of success might look like to know whether we're on the right path or we need to course correct. So we will agree the goals, we'll agree what early milestones for success look like, we'll agree how we're going to measure them, because if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. If you can't manage it, you can't change it. If you can't change it, we don't need you, right? So agree how we're going to measure it, agree how we're going to review it, and then we do this important step, which is, so at what point, George, we'll just let you get on with it, and at what point will it trigger a conversation that you and I will have to have? In other words, if we're anywhere between, let's say, 90% and 110% of that goal, as an example, it could be 99 and 101, it could be 80 and 143. I don't care where the brackets are, the extremes of that are, but if at any time, George, we're anywhere between, let's say, 80% and 115%, then come talk to me, right? Then find me out, right? Seek me out, hunt me down, right? In other words, that should trigger an exception report. If it's anything less than 80, more than 115, because let me tell you, leaders, a business that's 40% ahead of its targets is as out of control as one that's 40% behind its targets. Think about that whilst you're brushing your teeth tonight. So we know where the brackets are. Anything up to that, come talk to me. Anything beyond that, come talk to me. If it's in that Goldilocks zone, if it's in that bracket, don't need to come talk to me. There's no exception. So I only have to get involved when we're outside that bracket. So let's agree the bracket, let's agree that those parameters, and then manage by exception. In other words, so long as we're not outside that bracket, have at it. You don't need to report to me. You don't need to give me lots of administrations that you have to write, that I have to read. We don't have to review it, right? So long as we're constantly within those brackets. As soon as we're outside those brackets, come and see me. This was a very famous leader that I worked for. This was his MO, management by exception. It's a phenomenal way to manage people, manage projects, manage organizations, manage by exception. Because nobody feels micromanaged. You just get on with it. Nobody, everybody feels very autonomous. Everybody feels very able to affect whatever changes they need in their job to get things done. He used to say this: I don't mind bad news, but don't bring me surprises. So what did he mean by that? That a month from now, when it's time to review, for example, if we do this management by exception properly, because if somebody hasn't even started on the project, then we're going to be less than 80%, right, in terms of time from where we want it to be. And so we would have to have a conversation. So what will never happen is a month goes by and you're having a monthly review, for example, and you hear something like, yeah, I haven't even started yet, boss. I haven't managed to get to that yet. That's the surprise. I don't mind bad news, but don't bring me surprises. That would be a surprise, and surprises are bad, right? So why would that create an exception? Because we're less than 80%, because we haven't even started yet, probably at 0%. You get the idea, right? To the extent that you possibly can, figure out how to manage by exception. I think we should do a whole episode on management by exception. It's such a powerful skill. Okay, so conflicting priorities, right? That's what happens when there's lack of alignment. What else happens? Well, let's say reduced productivity. And productivity, if you can figure out productivity this year, you'll have, if you focus like a lunatic on productivity, your business will come along leaps and bounds. Okay, the productivity is basically output per hour work, but you know what productivity is. And that doesn't just have to be in a manufacturing sense, right? It could be a service organization with reduced productivity, right? What happens if there is reduced productivity? Well, duplicated effort, that kills me, right? Duplicated effort. That's bad. Missed targets, missed tasks and targets. Inefficiency. Inefficiency. What does all of that means? That we're going a lot slower than we need it to be, right? So reduced productivity means we're slower, which means we're not moving the flag down the beach as quickly as we can. It means we probably, if you're looking at the bottom right-hand corner of the spreadsheet every month, it talks about growth or gross or net profit, then those numbers aren't what we need them to be, right? So that probably is a consequence of reduced productivity. Where does that come from? A lack of alignment. How do we fix that? Well, we fix that by very frequent, and you cannot overdo this, right? Very frequent communication. The boss that I worked for that ran the whole organization by the principle of management by exception, one of the things that he would say to me, I was the managing director of the organization, or the CEO, was don't say much, but say it all over the place and in 1,000 different ways. And he said, so I was the CEO, and he actually, for the whole of the executive team, he said that all of our business cards shouldn't have CEO, COO, CIT or anything like that, CHRO. It should have CRO, and he didn't mean Chief Revenue Officer, he meant Chief Repeating Officer, right? We need to say, don't say much, but say it all over the place and in 1,000 different ways. And that way, we start connecting those people, linking those people together, and to start creating alignment. So, what does frequent communication give us? Well, it gives us transparency. It creates much more discussion, which is a good thing, right? We're not, a benign dictatorship, right? Lots and lots and lots of updates, of course. And it's management by consensus. It starts to create consensus. Very frequent, regular, targeted communication And there's lots of ways to do it. And I'm not just talking email, and I'm not just talking newsletter, and I'm not just talking notice boards, and I'm not just talking employee engagement surveys, and I'm not just talking feedback, and I'm not just talking town halls, and I'm not just talking one-on-ones, and I'm not just talking going around dropping thermometers around the business, and I'm not just talking management by walking about. I'm talking about all of those things, right? But consensus is when we can start to organize our business as a minimum standard by consensus. I'm not yet talking about collaboration, full collaboration, where we're sharing goals and each department is contributing to each other department's goals. I'll talk about that in a few minutes. I'll tell you a little story about Lego, perhaps. Consensus, the definition of consensus is quite simple. It's one of those things that's simple but not easy to affect, right? But think about this, write this down when you're thinking about consensus. Consensus is, at its root, whether or not I agree with the decision, I'll support it if it's been reached openly, honestly, and fairly. And when we can start to say that, so whether or not I personally agree with the decision, I will support it if it's been reached openly and honestly and fairly. When we can start to apply that as the lens for all of our decision making, and then we get consensus, then productivity goes up, right? That's a good thing. Alignment goes up, right? Linkages go up. Conflicting priorities come down. Okay. Let's just take a little breather. Let's just take a break from our model for the moment. Whilst we have all of these models, this model, for example, and all the other models that we draw, that we'd like you to draw also, they are all available as a complimentary digital download. All of them. Previous ones, past ones, and future ones, right? So Cornelia makes a much more handsome fist of this than I possibly can. So please do go download it at www.mydailyleadership.com/podcast. So just stick that into your search engine, www.mydailyleadership.com/podcast. And this image, this model, and all of our models, which are pretty much exclusive to us, are available. Download them, share them, stick them on your notice board, right? And then very, very quickly you'll start to absorb them. So look, if you're new to the podcast, if this is your first look, thank you very much. Big welcome. As I mentioned, I'm Antonio Garrido. I'm the founder of this organization, the president of My Daily Leadership. I'm a serial entrepreneur too. I'm a business leader. I'm an author of 3 books, about to be 4, depending on when you're watching this. Over the years, I've partnered with everyone from real scrappy, agile startups, love those guys, all the way up to the biggest of the biggest of the biggest, right? Helping them develop stronger leaders and create lasting and sustainable growth. Hey, when we launched this podcast, our mission was really simple. We just wanted to deliver real value and tangible ROI, return on investment. That's the time, effort, and energy that you're investing, joining us today, for busy leaders like you. So we know your plate is full. So is mine, right? So we try and pack every episode with practical insights and actionable strategies, genuinely to help you tackle your leadership challenges right away. If lack of alignment is a challenge that you're facing right now, I'm hoping that today's going to help you out. If you have found value, if you do find value in this episode, just take a moment, maybe 6 seconds, to like and subscribe on YouTube, or follow us on your favorite podcast platform. Just follow us, that'd be great. Your support genuinely helps us. We do this for you and we do this for others, and it helps others find us. If you're watching on YouTube, we'd love to hear from you. Please do drop your biggest leadership challenge that you're facing today in the comments today, and we will either figure out how to point you to an episode that addresses that very issue, or if we don't have one, we'll make one just for you, because there will be others like you too, I promise. We genuinely read every comment and we always reply. So before we jump back in, don't forget, all the models we talked about in this episode are available for free download on our website. And Cornelia, our top-notch podcast producer and designer extraordinaire, takes my rough, dreadful drawings and turns them into sleek professional models that you can use right away. So head to www.mydailyleadership.com /podcast. All right, let's finish this thing off then. What does conflicting priorities give us? What does reduced productivity give us? What does poor decision making give us? What does this lack of alignment give us? What does all of that give us? It gives us low morale, right? And low morale, of course, people who are frustrated, so let's just write this list, so they are frustration. So there's lots of frustration with frustrated people. People are low in commitment. We talked about work ethic and commitment recently, right? They're low in commitment. They're frustrated. There's lots of friction around, right? The people are disengaged, not even maybe quietly disengaged. What does that mean? Turnover, right? You get the idea. You know how low morale reveals itself. It's right. It's not good. You're also responsible for, as a leader, what's the morale looking like in an organization? How do we build morale? Well, one of the ways that we build morale is, as we were talking earlier about consensus, let's build on that and let's actually talk about cross-functional. Collaboration. We have already done an episode. We'll probably do more on collaboration. If you don't have a collaboration at the executive level, if you don't have a collaborative team, if you don't have collaborative divisions, if you don't have collaborative managers, then you won't have collaborative people. You just won't. And the cross-functional collaboration, which breaks down silos and all of that good stuff, that is actually the nirvana. That's actually what we're going for, right? We're going for good, we're going for open, we're going for transparent, we're going for all of those good things, we're going for learning, right? We're for all of those things. The thing that we want more than anything else is cross-functional collaboration, because collaborative teams achieve significantly more than just cooperative teams. And as leader, you are responsible for the level of collaboration in your organization. You're responsible for it. Okay. So what does that mean? Well, that means, first of all, reward collaboration. Why? Because what gets rewarded gets repeated. And I'm just going to leave it like that. It's as simple as that. There are 15 things you can do, but I'll tell you a quick story. One of my favorite stories, go research this, right? After I've told you this story, and I'll try and keep it short. I could talk about this issue for 4 hours, and nobody wants that, right? But basically, Lego, we all know Lego, right? It's like Lego is an important part of most people's childhood, and maybe even now in adulthood, right? Than nearly any other game, right? Yeah, sure, Monopoly was okay, and so look, Lego, right? The world would be so much more impoverished if it weren't for Lego. It's a serious belief of mine. Lego is brilliant. What would the world be like without Lego? It'd be terrible. What would childhoods be like without Lego? Awful. Lego are about 3 weeks from closing, about 20 years ago. We just think, but Lego's been around forever and it's brilliant. Yeah, it has and it is, but it almost went away. Lego is really hard to make. If you think whatever you make is hard, Lego is really hard. All right, they're not making the space shuttle, but they're making very high grade, high precision, injection molded pieces of plastic, right? That have to be made to an extremely high standard, quality tolerance, so however you click them together, they always click and fit properly. Thousands of different pieces made out of terrible based products, petrol based, just awful, right? It's so hard to make, it's so expensive to make. The business was just about to close. They got a new CEO, and the new CEO said, look, let's just change the whole culture of this organization. And now, when I was a kid, a million years ago, Lego was like 15 pieces and 4 different colors, and you just made the odd building out of it. It was a big day when those like honeycomb trees came around. That was a big day in my household. But now when you look at Lego, it's like the Millennium Falcon and the Eiffel Tower and the Colosseum in Rome, the Titanic, right, with thousands of pieces. They're amazing. Fathers do them, and mothers and kids, and it's just a great thing. How did they turn Lego around? They made it much more of a collaborative place to work. They said things like, no one here will ever get fired for missing a goal. Think about that for a second. No one will ever get fired for missing a goal. No one will ever get fired for failing. You will get fired for knowing you're failing and not asking for help. That's a whole different world now, isn't it? You'll get fired for knowing you're failing and not asking for help. They're okay if people fail, but ask for help so that we don't have to fail, or we learn from it, right? Asking for help. You won't get fired for failing, but you will get fired if you see someone failing and not offering to help. I worked with a company once, super quick story, not that we were trying to emulate Lego, but it was an incredibly collaborative organization. It was phenomenal. We were a manufacturer. Sales were down. We were probably about 20% down in terms of our year-to-date sales. And what that meant was that actually, as a consequence of sales being down, our logistics team were quiet, right? Shipping stuff all the way around the world, right? So we were 20% down in sales. We were 20% down in production. That means that production had some people that weren't quite as busy as they used to be. Logistics had some people that weren't quite as busy as they used to be because we weren't kind of sending quite as many containers and lorries as we would had we been fully staffed and fully manned. And I was at a board meeting when the sales director, sales VP, and the logistics VP, a guy called David, said, hey guys, sales are a little bit quiet at the moment, and said to the sales manager and the marketing VP, so I got some people. I got about 6 guys. I can probably lend you 6 guys for a couple of months till we get over this bridge. What could you do with 6 guys? Could you put them to use? Just think about that for a second. A production guy gave, I think, about 12 guys. Suddenly the sales and marketing team had 18 new heads. And they could stuff envelopes. That's how long ago it was. That's how ancient I am. They could make calls. What could they possibly do to help the sales and marketing function? They volunteered their people to come and help, to get them over the bridge. They didn't argue about budget. They didn't say, I'm going to lend you 6 people, but I don't want that on my budget, and you're going to have to. It was none of that. It was just like all for one and one for all, right? It was like the 3 Musketeers. It was phenomenal. That's what Lego did, right? They rewarded collaboration, where people are volunteering to offer their time, effort, energy, and resources to somebody else in pursuit of common goals. Talk about breaking down silos. Phenomenal. This is starting to sound like a bit of a sermon. Let's move on. All right, let's go to the last box, which is the last quadrant, poor decision making. This is lack of alignment, remember? That's the thing we're talking about? Okay, so poor decision making. What does poor decision making give us? Well, another thing that slows us down. So it slows us down. It makes us inconsistent. And one of the things that people want more than anything else from their leader is consistency. This kills people. One day hot, one day cold, one day happy, right? That whole kind of manic depressive leadership. Have you ever seen 7-year-olds playing soccer? I've seen so many leaders run their business like 7-year-olds playing soccer. What does it look like when 7-year-olds play soccer? We've got 22 people on the field. We've got 2 goalies. So apart from those 2, we've got 20 outfield players, right? All 7-year-olds, all wanting to play soccer. And the ball goes over here, and 20 kids swarm to the ball. And then it gets kicked over there, and 20 kids swarm to the ball. Then it gets kicked over here, and 20 kids swarm to the ball. Is that how you're running your business? Let's all do this now. No, now let's all do that. Okay, we've done that for 5 minutes, now let's try this. All right, we've done that, now let's do that, right? That inconsistency is a consequence of poor decision making, and you're running your business like 7-year-olds playing soccer. It's hysterical to watch, but it doesn't help your business. Okay, and it means that you make biased decisions. And all of that dreadfulness. So how do we deal with that, right? How do we deal with that poor decision making and all that kind of stuff? Well, the first thing you've got to do, and it's really sad, and it's really boring, and it's really dull, and it's not the glamorous part of leadership, but it's about unifying tools, systems, and processes. I mean, I can just hear you yawning right now, but look. You know, when a company is valued, it's valued, how is it valued? You know and I know that they look at the bottom right-hand corner, they look at the growth, sure. They look at the revenue, sure. They look at the profit, sure. They go, okay, how's that tracking? Let's do an MAT, let's graph that over time. How's it looking? How's it looking compared to the market? What does market share gain look like, right? They do all of that good stuff. And then they put a multiple on and they go, okay, well, we'll times that by 10 and here's the valuation of the organization. And then the owners will say, you insult my children, it should be 12, right? We have all of that, everybody dancing around the handbags, and that's how they come up with the valuation. But you know, one of the unsung heroes to help that valuation is the systems and the processes, right? The boring stuff. That stuff adds immense value to your business. If you're grooming your business for sale, think about unifying your tools. I'm going to show you that in a second. Systems and processes. It adds enormous value, especially if you're important to the running of the business. If you are integral to the running of that business, the valuation of that company has just gone right down the toilet, right? We've got to get you out of the business. I think one of our first sessions was, how do we get you working on the business and not in the business? And that's one of the things that we're trying to do. Why is that important? Because we want to increase the value of your business. That means we've got to get you out of it. If you are important, or your senior team, to run the business, because we haven't standardized the tools and the systems and the processes, you're taking money off the table. That's crazy, right? Okay. So everything needs to be standardized. Boring, I know, but there you are. The great thing about standardization as well, it helps you recruit, helps you retain, it helps you train. It's brilliant. So standardized systems, what does that give you? That gives you enormous clarity. And it makes sure everyone's on the same suite of tools. And I'm going to talk about that in 1 second. Make sure that you're getting lots of tech behind that. Make sure all of that's good. Look, we talk about 4 Ds. Let me just write that down very quickly. So 4 Ds. I'll talk about that very quickly. And do you know what? We are going to do an episode just about these tools. I've just decided. So Oscar and Cornelia, we're going to do a model just about this. What are the 4 Ds? The 4 Ds are decide. So you've got to make a decision. We're talking about poor decision making here. So we're talking about making good decisions. Poor decisions over this side, poor decisions here, good decisions here. So first of all, we have to make a good decision. So we have to decide. Once we've decided, we then have to do. So we're going to do that thing. We're going to delegate that thing, or we're going to ditch that thing. So we've got to make a decision, then we do, delegate, or ditch, right? Those are the 4 Ds. So how do we decide? Well, there are 6 tools that we use to help us make that decision. Not in the next episode or maybe the one after that. We're going to tell you what those standard tools are to help you make good decisions. When you make good decisions, the alignment of the organization goes up, the linkages go up, we make good decisions, morale goes up, productivity goes up, conflict comes down, all good stuff. Okay, I think that's it for today. That's a wrap. So before you go, I want to know, where does your business and your team, as far as alignment, need to improve most? Is it setting clearer goals? Is it more frequent communication? Is it increasing cross-functional collaboration or implementing unified tools, systems and processes that we were just talking about? So A, is the issue in goal setting? Is B, the issue in communication? Is C, is the issue collaboration? Or D, is it systems and processes? Let me know. Put a comment, A, B, C or D under this episode and then we'll know. A huge thank you for joining me today as always. I do hope this episode offered something of value. I've enjoyed delivering it. I hope you enjoyed listening to it. Even if it's just one tip or improves your leadership ability just by 1%, even if it just makes you go and have another deeper look into Lego, that's a good day for me. Remember, there's immense power in marginal gains over time. Be sure to like, follow and subscribe so you don't miss out on future episodes like this one. Tell your friends. Speaking of future episodes, next time it's story time, I think. We'll be learning from companies like Apple and Walmart and understanding how insights from their visionary leaders, can't argue with their success, leads to groundbreaking innovations and sustainable success. So good, that's got to be worth the time, I think. So thanks for being here. I'm Antonio Garrido. Until next time, by wisdom and effort, see you soon.